Hello, my name is John Sveck. Welcome to this ALL24 video. Today, Coach Waterman and I are joined by a special guest coach, Adam Grandy, linebacker coach at Western University. Thanks for being with us, Coach.
Thanks for having me, fellas. I'm a huge fan of your guys' podcast and everything you guys are doing, so love to help out.
Awesome. Always great talking football with you. So I'm going to give you the floor. You're going to talk us through some defensive concepts here, Coach.
Yeah, absolutely. I know, we all kind of have a lot of time on our hands, and we all keep on kind of hearing about RPO, and, it's definitely something the offensive coordinators are, holding the chalk and not giving up the chalk with that. So, it's something we're seeing more and more, and you see it almost at, all levels of football. So just kind of taking you through some of the options that I think would help in defending RPO and go from there. So I guess the basics, if you're watching an NFL broadcast or whatnot, it's always, or NCAA, it's always coming up for RPO. So basic being, run pass options. So which could happen in a number of different ways. So basically the offense is trying to take advantage of either, the defense being in the zone, or, the box count, or, potentially an alignment adjustment based on motion. Or maybe even as simple as, a defensive end, whether he is playing shuffle or if he's playing crash technique. But basically, a quarterback's asked to kind of read one player and then make a read from there and try to, get a numbers advantage versus the defense. So it doesn't have to be, but it's usually a lot with a player that's kind of as a dual read in terms of being responsible for the run and being responsible for the pass. Is kind of the most common one that we see. So as I alluded to before there, it's, biggest thing when I try to break down a team is doing RPO is, well, who is the read? Is it the will linebacker? Is it the Mac? Is it the Sam? Is it the boundary half free? So one of the defensive backs, or is it potentially the defensive end? And it's just a simple, pull and get outside them and throw the ball. And then after I figure out what the read is, I start to think, okay, well, how often are we potentially going to see this? Like, is it something that is only a once every, or a couple times in the game, or is this a significant part of the offensive playbook for them? And then I take it the next step of, can we just line up and play and defend it? And, will my, Jimmys beat their Joes, so to speak? So those are kind of my thought process when I start to look at teams that are running RPO against us. So, and then I try to break it down into, some options that, defenses can go with. The first one being just, the linebackers, we're going to play your defense, play the call, and then we're going to have to read and react. And, it's going to take a special type of athlete to play within that. But I think there's still stuff that you can do within the whole defensive structure and your defensive line to help out with that as well. So that'd be just your first step, just line up, play, and play your call. Second option would be, man coverage and pressure. So it's an easy option, because it takes your guys kind of out of conflict. Zone pressure is a great option as well, because you're also kind of, forcing the hand, as well as, you're playing and you're not committed to the man coverage if you feel you don't have the athletes that can cover man coverage. And then the last one would be, a combo coverage. So whether you're playing zone to one side, man to the other, or even trying to, instill man principles within your zone concepts as well there too. I would think probably the nicest things that are probably best thing you can do, it goes back to your understanding of the RPO. And, can you, once you establish what the read is, try to mess with the read and make that quarterback make that decision, post snap that puts him, in a bind or something he might not have been expecting. And, you can do that a number of ways, I think, with your front. I think even trying to be, fluid with your drops and changing around, different things within that. I think you can do that. And obviously movement, both in the back end and in the front end as well, in terms of stunt game as well. So I think when I looked at those are the type of the options that you can go with. So as I talked about, LB's read and react. So this is just your base call. So we're going to call our defense here. If we get RPO, so be it. We're going to teach our guys how to play within it. Biggest thing I try to teach the linebackers would be, is this a true zone read or is this an RPO? And usually kind of the indicator is, is the tackle blocking down or is he blocking out to block the defensive end? And our guys, and they want that clear kind of B-gap window. And our guys, how we'll do that is we'll slow play, we'll read the mesh, and then we will try to, get to our drop from there, which is, it's difficult to do. It's difficult to do, and there's a lot of good quarterbacks, in our league we play in that can fit into tight windows there too. But I think that's probably your best way if you're just going to say, we're going to play our call, we're going to live with our call. That's probably the best way to do it.
Can I ask you, Coach,
Yeah.
can I just ask you quickly about that? When that slow play, is there a bit of a shuffle going on, or what exactly? How is he moving, or is he standing
Yeah, I
still,
think
or what's?
it's naturally going to happen. I usually, and this is probably a bigger discussion. I don't teach read steps for the LBs, but it's naturally going to happen because those guys are seeing, an open lane coming. We do get a mesh look there. So I think you don't want to necessarily get caught flat-footed on it. But, at the same point, I think you don't want to risk getting yourself, so far with your steps that it takes you out of your drop.
Right.
So it's just something that kind of has to be rep, and something as a defense coordinator you have to almost accept that if they hit the RPO behind us, that's something that we're going to try to live with, and at least we're going to try to force it into a tight window. Okay. At the end of the day, we can always kind of rely back and say, can we survive, being slower to the run and getting ourselves in the 2nd and 6, 2nd and 7, as opposed to the 1st and 10 when they throw the ball in behind us there. So just some things to think about with that. But yeah, no, it's a good point. Good point, John. But one thing, and I guess it kind of would depend what RPO you see. I would say gap exchange could help out as well in terms of your defensive end being able to take the B gap. Because I think it kind of a number of different ways you can work with that to help your LB play with a bit more width and help him get to his drops as well there too. So man coverage is kind of, if this has been hitting repeatedly, you kind of have to think, okay, let's take, the guy that's in conflict here. Let's just give him no conflict and we'll cover off the routes here. So that kind of immediately helps with the linebackers, makes their world a lot smaller there. I think you can definitely play aggressive to the run game as well. So, if we're getting this, you're probably going to have to expect to pass off of it because of, how downhill your linebackers are going to be playing with this. And then, coupled with the man coverage, you're sending pressure, which I think helps out as well because, and offenses do a great job of, FTF as soon as they see something and not going through the fake. But at least by sending pressure, we can potentially, force them into something, and shoot, our guys we play against, they aren't pro guys. Like sometimes you make mistakes. And I think having that added, pressure there could help out with that as well. I would say some of the issues you need to think of with playing man coverage is, do you have the personnel to do it? Can your guys cover and play man coverage? Do you feel confident with that? A lot of good offensive coordinators now start to know that's the answer, and they're starting to now put in rub routes, stack routes, and try to take advantage of how you're playing that as well. So just some things you need to think of if you say, okay, this is our automatic answer. Well, you got to kind of sort through the issues as well. Your zone pressures are good because, like I said, it will take your guys. If you feel you don't have the personnel to play man, okay, then it's good. You don't have to dedicate them to that. You can get them to drop to their zones. And I think you can probably dictate what the read's going to be based on the pressure there. So you can kind of almost say, okay, if they see this, we're probably going to get a run look here, or if they see this, we're probably going to see the pass, and we have to, try to get to our zones within there as well. I think as well with that, because you're playing zone coverage, if a run, did pop or whatnot, not even like you can have your DBs have better pursuit just because of their vision to the backfield, how you're playing that as well. Okay. Again, some things you have to think of. It's not like that's, the ultimate answer either. Like, how are your zone pressures designed in terms of what personnel is doing what? Okay. Like, would you feel confident with a defensive end dropping into a curl flat or, things that like that? Or if you want to rotate, can your Sam play a high deep third if you're doing stuff like that? So, and the other thing you have to think of anytime it's a zone pressure, there's a vacated zone because you're usually sending, doesn't have to be, but usually sending a 5-man pressure. So, trying to play coverage in behind there as well, right? There's going to be a vacated zone somewhere within that. You kind of have to be specific with which way you want to defend the RPO and have the man coverage to the RPO side. But again, the nice thing is the linebacker is not in conflict there, and you're not have to deal with, our guys can't cover man. So what are we going to do with this? So I think if you do play combo, you have to think about, okay, what if a route goes from a zone side to a man side? How am I going to handle that? And then the things we talked about initially with the man coverage as well. But that's just kind of, if you look at it and you say, hey, I can only play man coverage with these guys, or, I don't want to be man across the board. These are just, some different ways you can do that. And like I said earlier, I think there's ways that you can just play. It's not combo coverage per se, but you can just say, hey, we're playing this zone, but, halfback corner, you're almost playing like a loose man within this as well, and knowing that you would have late help potentially inside after they defeat their run pass read. So ultimately, it goes back to kind of what I thought of, like, who are they reading? How can you mess with the read? And then you can almost dictate what it's going to be by presenting them the look that, if we're gonna show this, we're gonna get this look. And once your guys start to understand it, they can play that much faster around it as well. And like I talked about, different ways within the front, different ways you can change up your zone drops and movement as well there. So from a front standpoint here, this is one we had a lot of success with here in terms of just exchanging responsibilities. And it's not even a gap exchange, versus zone read, is we would have the will linebacker just out of the box and being inside shade the number 2 receiver there. And then if the defensive end saw a run, he would go the B gap, and then we would spill the C gap to our will linebacker there. So that kind of helped, because it allowed him to play with width and almost put him naturally in the pass window there, but also made us still gap responsible with the will backer, being the C gap. If we read pass, we're already in our pass drop there as well, and then our defensive end would just continue to go with an outside pass rush lane. So just something to kind of help out there and help, change the look that the quarterback is going to potentially see, while still essentially kind of playing almost strong front principles or over front principles there. And then, with your will plussed out there, you can play anything from, cover 3 shell, cover 2 shell, cover 4 shell, match, kind of whatever your base coverage concepts are there. Another thing I put in there is just, it's a real easy adjustment. Just, play a weak front or an under front if you feel that you're getting RPO to the weak side, just because once we get to the film, we'll kind of see that, defensive line being in passing windows, that really helps hurt the RPO there, because, as we talked about, those quarterbacks want to see that nice open B gap there, the nice window there. But what if you close that now? You close that, and then now the window is going to be through the A gap. And now the will linebacker doesn't have to worry so much about getting width, because he has assistance from, his defensive line trying to get into the passing window there, and he can take more of a vertical drop there. So, I think getting into those passing windows is huge, that the defensive line can do to help out with defending RPOs. Just adjusting your drops. So a real easy one, we used to run was just, we would play, a cover 3 concept, but we would actually just have the boundary halfback with Rob from his high, like, he'd make it look like it was almost cut weak, but he'd come down, he would take the hook curl responsibility. The will linebacker would then buzz out to take the curl flats there. And that's, a good confusing look there of, if the will is the read there, they see the will buzzing out there, they give the ball, and then we still have our numbers in the box because we've asked our boundary half to be gap responsible as well there. So that's just one example of that. I think you can also rotate, and just the more flexible you are within kind of those triangle players like the Sam, the free safety, the boundary half, you can really start to have fun with how you want to play your coverage shell within that, and then, create flexibility and confusion within what reads they have. Okay, so you can rob the free safety down with the same type of concept there, rob the free safety, whether it be strong hook, weak hook, and then you can just rotate, whether it be the boundary half or Sam backer up to, your middle of the field post defender. So I think those things give a confusing look to the quarterback as well. Another real easy one, which is kind of designed in a lot of people's, zone coverage principles, is just collision receivers. Okay, like if they're trying to throw to the number 2 receiver weak, if you get the halfback jamming that guy, that essentially is almost eliminated the route that he was going to run, or it screws up the timing enough that the quarterback has to put the ball down, then potentially your defensive line can get after him there. And then the kind of last thing is just adding defensive lines into your drops. They're probably going to be held a little bit in terms of based on how you structure it, because they're still going to get a run read. So it's just, how do you want to do that, whether you're sending additional pressure so he doesn't have a gap regardless and he's going to go and drop out, or do you have to have him make a read as well there? So it's just, that's all just how you want to design, but getting those guys involved is something that, I don't think a lot of quarterbacks are anticipating, when they go through the read progressions. So when it comes to movement, obviously showing pressure, is going to elicit a response from the offense in terms of if they're called an RPO, will they still stick with this RPO, or will it cause, an FTF in terms of they're not going to run their fake, they're just going to go with the pass right away. And if you know that, you can dictate it, and you can just say, okay, we're going to show the pressure, we're going to bail out, but we know that they, want to throw to this receiver right away there. Another good thing, which we talked about a bit earlier, is defensive line stunts in terms of passing windows, but also in terms of, if they do want to just hand the ball off, we're still kind of creating a bit of chaos up front by, doing defensive line stunts, whether with the mostly what we do would be the interior defensive tackles, just jumping from, strong to weak post snap and just trying to change up, those double teams or, what the offense thinks will be their double teams and changing it from there. From the back end, a couple different things. Obviously, movement will always help there, but if you don't give them kind of a clear look in terms of levels, that you're potentially playing. So, whether it be, okay, just based on pre-snap look, it looks like they're playing, 3-cut week. Okay, you don't give them anything to go off there in terms of if you play, heels at 9, heels at 10 yards across the board from your 5 DBs. Okay, now it's kind of given a bit of quarterback has to now read that post snap, okay, which is always a benefit if you can get the quarterback making those reads post snap there. And then I think even just a lot of offenses have, their rules built in based on, and it's more probably see it more to isolated guys. So if we get a 31-41 and they see the boundary corners off, even though it's not a traditional RPO, I think a lot of, or some coordinators would have that built in that, okay, we're going to run the quick comeback because this guy's off, 12 yards or playing soft or running slant or whatnot. So even though it's not a traditional RPO, it's just some things I think as a coordinator, you got to be cognizant of the look that you're getting, within that in your pre-snap look and trying to even play around within that. So whether you want to show press from your corner and then play off or play around with, instead of just, okay, I'm going to play off man and they know I'm playing off man and I've given them now the route tree to kind of work with there. So that's basically, I know that's kind of pretty rapid fire there, but a lot of what I wanted to cover in terms of my thought process with defending RPO and kind of what, I think will be successful within that.
Coach, there's so much good stuff there. Really appreciate that. That's a wowzer for coaches watching this in terms of the different ways to handle it. And I'm glad you mentioned at the end, you're seeing a lot more of that pre-snap then post-snap RPO where your initial look, maybe a 3-by-1 formation, and they're going to watch that one single receiver cornerback and see how deep he is. And, they'll attack there. If not there, they'll work the RPO on the other side. So I'm glad you mentioned that, how important it is to sort of mix up those looks so they don't get that pre-snap RPO. So, for those younger coaches watching, it's the RPO game is advancing the pre-snap and post-snap stuff. And so you've got to be aware of all of that, right, Coach?
That's it, right? And it's something that, even when I was coordinating, that was something I just kind of overlooked. Like, okay, this is the technique I told you to play, but like that's what it's evolved to. And I think even, Coach Sheehan said on your guys' podcast, like this is going to be a thing we're dealing with for the next, 30, 40 years, I'm sure, however long football goes for. It's something we have to wrap our head around as defensive coaches, how to defend, right? Just because it does give them, a perceived advantage, right, in terms of numbers, but it's just a matter of, as the defensive coaches, we can still kind of dictate and play our own games within that. So yeah, absolutely.